Thank you, Welore and Sandra and Eric. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, buenos dias, bonjour, for my Malian friends. Iniwula, that's a little Bambara. I hope the translators don't feel like they have to translate. I'm Steve Esquith. I'm a professor at the Residential College in the Arts and Humanities at Michigan State University. And after a brief introduction, I'll moderate the three presentations in today's program, followed by an open-ended discussion with the audience on Zoom, either using chat or the Q&A function. Let me thank the organizers of this webinar series and their sponsoring organizations, the technicians behind the scene who managed to set up 3 simultaneous translations. Give myself a reminder to speak slowly so that the 3 simultaneous translations can be done. And thanks to the translators in advance for what I'm sure will be a sterling performance. I've worked with some of the other panelists today, dating back to the first decade of this century in Mali, which makes it sound like a long, long time ago. And all of us have worked intensively together as a peace building and peace education team for the past 3 years. As the Malian Commission for Truth, Justice, and Reconciliation, CVJR, approached the end of its first 5-year term in 2018, they sent a small delegation to Bogota, Colombia, to consult with the Colombian Truth and Reconciliation Commission. In 2018, the 2 countries were looking to share ideas and benefit from each other's recent experience, launching their new commissions and dealing with the legacy of violence in their countries. Our work in Mali is what we call a hybrid peace building practice on 3 levels. At the national level, we're working with the Commission to study and discuss the public testimonies and individual depositions that have been given over the past 6 years. At an intermediate level, we are working with students from the Malian University Institute for Technologie, IUT, the Michigan State University Residential College in the Arts and Humanities, RCAH, and Scientific Animations Without Borders, SAWBO, or SAWBO, to produce video animations in local languages synthesized from the testimony given to the Commission. 3 of our panelists will be addressing this intermediate level: Welore Tamboura, Julia Bella Bravo, and Barry Pittendry. I will say a little bit more about each of them before they give their presentation. At the local level, we are working with Malian community organizations to disseminate these stories in the form of video animation as prompts for democratic peace-building dialogue. Our other 2 panelists, Moussodjie Dembele and Boubacar Garango, will address their work at the local level. Please take full and the Q&A on Zoom. I will try to monitor them so that we can have a lively and informed discussion after each of the 3 sets of presentations, and then at the end. We, working in Mali, have learned a lot from the peace-building process in Colombia and the earlier webinars in this series. We want to share some of our experiences with you here today in the hope that it will be of use to you in Colombia and elsewhere. Peace building, we believe, must occur locally, but at the same time, our local experiences, we also believe, have a global reach. We are reaching out today to share our experiences with you in Colombia and elsewhere, and to learn from you. Thank you again to the organizers and the translators and technicians, and to our panelists. And let me now introduce our first panelist, Dr. Welore Tamboura, who's an instructor at the University Institute for Technologie in Bamako, Mali. She has her PhD in Information and Communication Sciences from the University of Grenoble in France. And she served as a visiting scholar and teaching assistant in the residential college in the arts and humanities at Michigan State University in 2019, 2020. Welore will talk about the Malian context of peace building and the work she's done with her own students in Mali to advance this project. At the end of her presentation, there'll be an opportunity for a short set of questions and answers, and then we'll move on to the second presentation in the series. Welore, thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Steve. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Bonjour à l'Université de Lettres.
Welcome all. Thank you very much, everyone. And I know that there are people from the university and from the faculty who are connected. And thank you very much also to the students from our group. And we call them the Young Ambassadors of Peace. We want to thank you for joining us, for being able to join us in this session. Thank you very much. And I want to also thank the organization team who prepared this with simultaneous interpretation to 3 different languages. So please don't forget to choose your preferred language channel, and thank you. So before starting my presentation about peace and the work we've done in Mali, I'd like to start with the following phrase: the presence of the past. And well, actually, when I arrived to the Michigan State University and to the Residential College of Arts and Humanities, we started to prepare certain courses, and I always saw how the past was so present, and I asked myself, well, what does it mean? And I really wanted to discuss more on the presence of the past. I think this would be a very long dialogue that we must, in a way, all have. So I wanted to start my presentation by talking about this, by talking about the presence of the past. And why do I choose to do so? Well, because it's difficult to talk about crises. I apologize. Her connection was interrupted, or what we've called the Mali crisis. It's very difficult to talk about the Mali crisis without talking about the past. So I will approach these 2 different dimensions in my presentation. Firstly, I will talk about the past and the reasons that perhaps explain why we are in this current crisis. And to list everything that has happened in the past, we wouldn't have enough time. But I do think it's important to highlight the most important points. And in the second part of my presentation, I will talk about what we do, about our consolidation work towards peace. And we call this the path to an enduring and lasting peace. And Mali, in Mali, we've adopted a name. Well, in the year 1973, we were firstly called the French Western Africa, and this actually comes from the Empire of Mali, which was Empire of Western Africa around the 13th and 16th century. That's the history or the historical timeline that I'm referring to. I would just like to provide a bit of time for the interpreters for everybody to understand. I apologize if I'm speaking at a fast pace. I will keep that in mind. So the Mali Empire was very famous. And thanks to Musa, she was very well known because she helped the empire significantly. And visitors can certainly see the richness in gold and that are very much related or make reference to Musa. So this person had a very important role in the Mali Empire, and it had an impact on the customs, the culture, the languages, dialects, as well as laws. The contemporary Mali, we all know, does not have the same dimensions as the Mali Empire had. However, it still is a vast territory. And Mali is the second largest African state in the western part. So this vast territory also has had negative effects because 2/3 of our territory are part of the Saharan desert. And it's actually one of the main problems that Mali currently lives. And well, as one of the main consequences of being in this territory is the presence in the Saharan desert. Well, a lot of the population of Mali lives in the southern part of the country. And to be able to understand what we call the Mali crisis, I apologize. I think her connection is a bit unstable. As I was mentioning, can you hear me? I apologize. I think you are not able to listen to me well due to my connection.
Faites-moi savoir si vous m'entendez.
Can you please let me know if you hear me well? Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you, Welore. Hello, Welore?
Hello?
It appears we might have a connection problem in Bamako right now. Welore, can you hear me? Looks like she's lost her connection and will sign back on. In the meantime, we can move on to our second presentation, which is also from Mali. And this will be from Boubacar Garango and Moussodjie Dembele. But before we do that, let's pause just a moment and see if Welore comes. Here she is. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I got out of the Zoom. I'm sorry.
Okay. So if you can resume your presentation en français et parler doucement, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, d'accord.
Merci beaucoup.
D'accord. Donc, je m'excuse, j'ai été déconnectée du Zoom.
Oui, ça marche.
Donc, rapidement, en fait, donc, je disais.
I apologize. My Zoom locked out. So I was saying, Mali is a vast territory, and it has great history coming from the Mali Empire, which is also very present and a very enriching history dating from the 13th century. And to be able to understand the current crisis, we must revise this history, this past, to be able to understand this present. So the Mali crisis, let's use this crisis. It started from an association of crises. And as an example, Mali lived different waves of rebellions from its independence in 1960. First, the rebellion of the 1960, then year 1968, then in the one held in 1982, and then the one in 2020, without counting the one we lived in year 2012. So we can find these explanations to the succession of crises, and we can find internal and external factors of these that gave path to these rebellions. Within these internal factors, we can quote or refer the geographical situation that I just referred to. And due to this geographical context, well, this is a very complex territory to control. On the side of, or for the state to control, and also to distribute goods. There is a certain discrimination as well since that time, since all these different historical periods between the south and the northern regions. And another really important point is the legal system. The legal system was not impartial. This legal system was very much criticized in the last years, because we basically claimed that it actually created tensions that led us to inter-ethnical challenges and tensions and conflicts that we currently live. So this rebellion crisis from the year 1968 to 2006 and 2012, and these internal factors that I just referred to, plus those external factors that I also quickly mentioned. Well, firstly, I'd like to point out the pressures of certain groups such as Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, and radical groups that are based mainly in Afghanistan. And as part of this, and as a consequence of these external factors, well, the fall of the Gaddafi regime in Libya. So for a lot of observers, the arrival of the crisis in 2012, and then the deep crisis, and then those rebellion events in the northern part of the country have a lot to do with Afghanistan, because many terrorists that have fled from combat actually refuged or sought refuge in the northern part, and actually a part of Mali that is not well controlled by the state. So
to the fall of Gaddafi, equally, I have some connection issues here.
À la mort de Kadhafi. Donc, avec ce qui se passe, que nous connaissons tous, ce qui s'est
Excuse us, the panelist is having a few technical issues.
We may have experienced another interruption in the network. Give Welore a couple of more minutes. The second part of her presentation is designed to acquaint you with the work she's doing with her students. We may be able to come back to that after we turn to the work of Boubacar Garango and Moussodjie Dembele. Let's give Welore she's returned, but still
I'm
muted.
sorry, maybe I could let Moussodjie and Garango present and hope for a better connection in future. What do
All
you
right.
think?
All right, we will switch to Boubacar and Garango and perhaps come back to you after they're done, if there's time. Thank you, Welore.
I'm not muted.
Steve, c'est d'abord moi et ensuite Boubacar.
So let me just say a word or two about Boubacar Garango and Moussodjie Dembele. Thank you, Welore, for that context and background. Boubacar Garango is from Mali, he has a law degree from the University of Bamako. He has worked as a teacher and a community activist since 2010. He's worked at the Institute for Popular Education in Kati, the Chawara School, and as a supervisor for a project for the protection of children in other areas of Mali, including Bandiagara in Dogon country. Moussodjie Dembele has a similar experience working for the Chawara School in Kati and has a master's degree in education from the École Normale Supérieure in Bamako. Since 2016, the two of them have been actively organizing community participation in peace building projects in Mali. I don't know who would like to go first, and I know the two of you will share the microphone, so allez-y.
Garango, je passe avant toi, n'est-ce pas?
Bien sûr, Moussodjie, bien sûr.
Bonjour à tous. Merci, Steve.
I will begin. Good morning. Thank you, Steve, for this presentation. My name is Moussodjie, and the top here today, this afternoon, because here in Mali, it's the afternoon, I will talk about the accomplishments that other people have developed in our community and the expectations that we have for the future, our community. Education is a weapon of peace. It is a phrase by Maria Montessori. Conflicts are phenomena that exist every day in families, schools, communities, and the source of these conflicts are the traditions, our way of life, our beliefs, etc. And stemming from this, we see that conflicts are not static, they're permanent. We go through them every day, we find them every day, and we have to face them every day. When our group of educators accomplishes something like this, and they actually accepted it, then we could begin with something that was fixed or that had at its axis training to accomplish peace. This was used or chosen since we live in a city that is protected called Kati, 10 kilometers away from Kapapu, which is the capital of Mali. And most are children of the military that fought in the front lines. The families say that the military were in the front line, and there were many problems when they were fighting, and they had to face very stressful situations because they didn't have any for the children as well. It was very, very stressful because they didn't have any news about their parents fighting on the front line. So there was didactics and political assimilation, economic assimilation that allowed the ones that were learning to see conflict in a peaceful way. This has a physical structure that represents 4 states where people are different ones from the others. And this game has a crisis situation as well that deals with managing resources, the territory. So this is what we find in real life. And we had that in mind in this game, and institutions like the UN or the World Bank participated as well in these games. So the ones that participated had to solve in these stages, solve these stages where there was an armed conflict. And this was a game that was not only beneficial for us as professors, but also for for students, because we had very good results. And among these results, we talked about effective management of emotions, empathy, acceptance of other people's opinions. And we also realized that there was great change in the students in stress management. They learned how to communicate, to trust each other, and to find for themselves the solutions that allowed them to move forward. We could also talk about conflict management amongst the students of the same class. Sometimes when they are stressed, when they don't want to listen, they do it and they manifest it through crises that are not good. So through these games, children could manage conflicts that could come up in their house or in their classroom, and this improved the results, academic results as well. We are very, very happy of being able to have train these leaders that are really going to take advantage of what they've learned about conflict resolution. I think that this will be very successful, and peace education was done with this book with pictures and these types of guides for professors as well, focused on the part of social aid. So these were games with the children, and we also had the duty of transmitting this innovation in class. And we could see that other students were acquiring benefits from this as well. This game was taken to younger children as well, and this helped learning to be faster, and that the people that take advantage of this are older as well. These books, then, we discussed them with the students. We listened to the comments, we heard the feedback, and we could receive the perspectives of about peace every day, justice, reconciliation. We did all that. And with our partners from the University of Tabala in Michigan, we could do some animated videos and books. And like Steve said in the beginning, we created animated videos with which we organized focus groups. And these focus groups were directed to adults and children and young people in general. And they are testimonials of public audiences that we heard, public hearings. And from these testimonials, we did the animated videos. These videos, with the participation of all of the partners that I already mentioned, and we had great discussions, and with the community especially. And the objective of these groups, the focus groups, were to look for indicators about how to accomplish everyday peace. We had many answers, and we felt that really the community had this longing of communicating and say what they thought. And this is what became important. That is where we saw all the atrocities reflected, the atrocities that everybody had gone through in the center of the country. There was this feeling. And when we talked about the military, we saw the influence that this had on the children, on and everybody else. So now I am going to give the floor to Garango so he can talk about the perspectives. Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup. Garango, s'il vous plaît.
OK.
Garango,
Vous m'entendez? Bonsoir tout le monde.
you have the floor.
OK.
Can you hear me?
Bonjour.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Où vous trouvez en Afrique, en
So
Amérique,
hello, everybody, in anywhere in the world where you are, in America, Africa, we're very happy to be here with you
sur ce sujet tellement
this afternoon
pour nous, pour notre pays.
to tell you about this topic that is so important for us, for our country, and the work that we do every day with our partners, especially with universities, the University of Michigan and the Institute, the Technological Institute of Mali, and Professor Steve and Dr. Tamboura. As I already said, since the beginning of this collaboration with a university, be it the University of Michigan or Michigan, in the humanities part, or with the University of Technology, we have had many important accomplishments in the consolidation plan for peace and social consolidation as well. We've seen what we can expect in the future with our NGO of the Popular Institution of Kati, which is an organization that works with the community from the base for community participation, especially in topics dealing with general interest. To continue to see what we have accomplished, I am going to number these. So we continue to work with all the partners, and I think that these decisions of continuing our work and the social consolidation and peace is especially because the crisis is still ongoing, and it is intensified, has been intensifying since 2012 until today. We've been very much affected by terrorism, in political instability as well. We're on our third state coup since 2012 until today. And the organization where we are, where the coups have happened, and where the stronger points of our military is, we will continue to receive in our school and our NGO the children of the military that are combating and the ones that have already died. And we will try to adapt solutions to these problems and try to find these solutions, because we really want to respond immediately to the necessities of these children so that they understand the notion of conflict, the notion of armed conflict, of intercommunitary conflict. And we also want to continue to do this work. And we are working especially on three aspects. The first one is to continue with the collaboration with the university and with the logic of creating a discourse to understand, for communities to understand each other's in social aspects and peace aspects. We know the importance of this project, and it's important to head that way if we really want to create in our students and in the community the possibility of finding means to face positively conflicts. So secondly, the State University of Michigan, we've worked on the dissemination of justice, reconciliation, and truth with collaborative workshops and with students from Mali and the US to share experiences, because this is something that's really important. This allows us to have an external vision of the conflict. And the fact also of having all of these students in Mali so that they can have the influence of different cultures. I'm sorry, I can't hear very well. And also social cohesion. Finally, in all of this interaction, as I said in the beginning, we expect to really be able to take advantage of this university collaboration to include them in a process, a special process about peace, aiming to allow our country and our communities to have experts trained locally to look for the reconciliation that we need so much in our country. It is a very ambitious plan, as we said, but it is what we really need to be able to find peace, because it's true that the experts that come from outside, from abroad, have their level of mastery, but it takes time to contextualize and to be able to touch on the what's at the bottom of peace and reconciliation in Mali. The second aspect of our work is also the creation of dialogue spaces and permanent exchange in some communities in Mali, where our NGO is. In this moment, we are executing a project through which we create dialogue spaces and permanent exchange in the cities to have a peaceful exchange that is every day, because we know that the conflict is permanent and it's linked to our daily existence. We have to find answers to focus positively in the community. So we feel the need of creating a space in an implicit space in the different communities where all of the parties have access and can study the key points for the directors, the women of these places, because they are very important elements of the community, and they usually don't have access and we don't hear them. So access to peace has to be collective. The discussion of conflicts has to be collective. So your participation is very important. So we really want through these spaces to give give a voice to all of these people, so we can find solutions to the different problems in terms of comprehension and social cohesion, first locally. And more importantly, we try to analyze today the sources of the conflict in Mali. Until today, there are no regions in Mali that is free of conflict. Some regions suffer a little bit more than others, but more and more, the most affected regions are the regions of the north and center.
Donc, de plus en plus, cette violence est en train de s'installer au site. Et si nous ne prenons pas
So this violence is now present in all the country, and we must take measures and have solid mechanisms. If not, in future or next years, we will see how there are really strong violences and conflicts, such as the ones we're living and evidencing in the northern part of the country. There are some that must be resolved immediately. And for this purpose, we not always trust in the very unstable government we have. We must seek equality. We must seek matters such as, for example, resources, justice for all, and understanding. There is this is a significant problem because when people are affected at their rights level, there's frustration, and generally this frustration then is later transformed into conflict and into violence, and that's exactly what we've seen year by year, and that can easily lead us to fights and to feeding negative emotions that we it can foster negative emotions and for us to feel negative emotions towards others. Therefore, the work that our Reconciliation Commission has done, the CVJR has done, is quite important. And for example, there have been public audiences of this commission with our communities. So we propose in a very society spirit to work from universities and together with them to have this constant exchange, permanent exchange toward by the means of audiovisual work and artwork. This work will certainly enable us to enrich the parameters that are necessary for peace building and for specialists to be able to help us in solving these conflicts. Finally, the third pillar is the opportunity to structure and to build towards peace with partners such as Musa in the framework of this peace building work. We see that the most important aspect is to work towards the long term. And yes, specifically doing this work with children in schools. This is extremely important, and we really want to focus on the topics that really have to do and that are linked with peace. Can you hear me?
Oui, on t'entend.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Garango, la connexion,
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Garango, your connection was off for just a little bit. Can you hear me now? Yes, we can hear you, Garango.
Continuez. Non?
Please continue.
Ok, d'accord. Merci beaucoup. Donc, je disais que le troisième pilier de notre travail, c'est vraiment la
All right, so as I was
continuité
saying,
de
the third pillar
certaines
of this
écoles
work
certaines écoles
is
et comme je l'ai dit, ce
in the
travail avec
Chiburai
les
school
enfants,
and in
c'est
other
vraiment
associated
extrêmement
schools. And I
important.
mentioned this is
C'est pourquoi nous
the
avons
work
le
that with
projet
children that we carry out. And the work that we carry out with children towards peace building is absolutely important. We want to contribute to really train citizens that are prepared to be able to face challenges, difficult challenges. And as we see conflicts being permanent in our history, we must really guide our students as soon as possible at early stages so that they can, for example, foster empathy, they can respect the opinion of others, and so that they can really help help us towards the elimination of these conflicts. Therefore, we must, for example, develop didactic activities by the use of images, drawing, design, theater, dance, music. And we really must do this at a cross-cutting way so that all children can be beneficiaries and can also contribute joy to our country. We know that this is a very ambitious project, but we also know that we are sure that all the different allies and partners of this project will help us impact positively the policies that are linked towards these matters. This is just a quick scope of some of our projections in our project in terms of peace building. I want to thank you for your attention,
Merci, Garango. Merci beaucoup, Garango et Moussodjie.
and I am here to answer any questions you might have.
Moussodjie pour for those presentations, helping us understand how Malians at the local level are engaging with one another, and also addressing some of the challenges posed by the Commission and the public testimony that it's gathered. I think we have time, if Welore's connection is strong enough, to go back and learn a little bit more about how changes at the university level are complementing the work that Garango and Moussodjie are doing. And once we have that, we can pause for a few questions about the local and university level before we turn to our international panelists, who are Barry Pittendry and Julia Bella Bravo, to talk about the innovative technology that we're using. Welore, do you feel confident? Can we go back to you? Yeah.
Yes, I have restarted everything down here. And as you know, we are always doing Zoom, and I don't know why now it is not working.
Okay, so en français, s'il vous plaît.
Okay. Oui, donc so I'm just putting my video off to have a better connection. Donc, voilà. Donc, je reviens et je ne vais pas reprendre la partie un peu contexte historique pour gagner du temps et profiter de ma connexion.
So I won't mention the historical part because I want to be aware of time and taking advantage of the fact that my connection is now working. Hopefully it's better than before. And if you can't hear me, please let me know to be able to retake what I was, the point where I had left off. I was talking about the historical context, about the internal and external causes of the conflict. So since year 2012 and 2019, and towards the year 2001, we were talking about rebellions in Mali. And since year 2012, we were talking about multidimensional crises, because it's no longer about rebellions. It's about terrorist attacks, jihad attacks. We had also talked about inter-community conflicts, and to be able to understand this configuration better in Mali, there are different ethnical groups. And in a general way, I can say that there are different ethnical groups. 40% of the population we have represented by the Sutambe population, 20% of the population in the Voltaic peoples. Those represent the following represent 12% of the population, the Tuareg peoples, and at the north of Mali. And since years 2012, there's been a series of massacres. And these have been repeated massacres in Tuareg, amongst others. And this new dimension of these phenomena is very concerning and very difficult to control, because we're talking about it's not a foreign weapon that is coming from Afghanistan. This is an inter-community conflict between Mali peoples. And perhaps for those of you who know better the Mali people, we can say that this was completely unimaginable. And just some years ago, not so long ago, when we were talking about this, well, we weren't able to imagine that between ethnicities there could be such a conflict as the one we're seeing right now. And it really shook Mali in all the sectors of society. And when we talk about inter-ethnical conflicts, these can also be explained by different factors, starting by, for example, the presence of the past, as I started my talk talking about this, and the problem regarding property that has been long withstanding on land rights, on different territories and lands, because we must be clear that the Mali people are nomad people. And these peoples that I'm referring to specifically, they live in the Tukong peoples live in the flattest part of the territory in the northern region. And the problem is that due to the extension of the Saharan desert and the dryness of this territory, the tribes try to find solutions. For example, during the drought season, and the ones that are in the flattest part go down to the valley, and this creates certain problems and frictions as well in these territories. So the problem is that there were jurisdictions, the Mali government, well, there were police authorities that were present in conflict. And we also had the traditional and classic system, which is also very important to highlight, which are the wise peoples, right? And at a tribal level, there were legal regulations and norms when there were problems within communities. So the situation is that in 2012, the government left the northern region. People were very fearful, and there was presence. And actually, there were claims already from jihadist groups present in those regions.
Parce qu'il y a aussi des observateurs, il y a des personnes qui nient l'existence réelle de ces affrontements, mais n'en déplaise que les morts sont réels.
And there were people that suffered directly from those confrontations between groups.
Aussi, il y a d'autres facteurs. Donc, il y a les facteurs du passé, il y a les facteurs du présent.
And in the there are I want to highlight that there are factors from the past and factors from the present, right? Later, we saw the intervention of those Mali revolution forces, and during this intervention, we basically armed part of the population. And once we consider that Mali had recovered its territory, we wanted to disarm these peoples, but we weren't successful in this task. So there are a lot of armed people in this region at that moment. And this also explains these type of conflicts and these massacres that I just explained have been happening recently. There's another important problem to mention. There are also religious groups. We always associate peoples to Muslim peoples or the jihadist groups. I won't further go into detail about the characteristics of these groups. However, there are religious groups that have perhaps facilitated or made this combination of groups regarding this topic. So perhaps for many observers, the problem of the conflict, many observers said that there were no inter-ethnical conflicts in Mali. However, there was an instrumentalization, or let's say, using the peoples as a means to create conflict by different groups. So it is indeed an inter-community problem and conflict. And this, by the different opinions of observers, we couldn't really reach also real solutions. And that's how we decided which way was the path that we had to choose to build peace. And as of our investigations, we state that to reach enduring peace, we need to reach peace at different levels. For example, two-level maps or a hybrid peace or a mixture or combination between peace from the state, from the institutions, and its international associates, as well as a peace from the community level, from actions directly as the ones that Garango was referencing to, actions from the lower part to, and also from the upper parts between these communities or between these two different groups. So it is in these two levels that we position ourselves, and we work in two different scales. One that is interdependent, and my colleagues described the work that we carry out since the year 2018 with the Malian Commission for Truth, Justice, and Reconciliation, or CVJR by its acronym in English, and the work we do after working in a collaborative group dedicated to peace. And well, what is our work about? What is our work specifically with the Malian Commission for Truth, Justice, and Reconciliation, where, well, they have listened to over 600 victims and have heard several testimonies from victims of the violence of Mali from the years, the decades of 1960 up to our current years. And so what are we doing? Well, this commission, or better said, the framework of this commission is exceptional because in general, truth commissions intervene in the conflict. Normally that's what happens. And this Mali commission has been created in a second mandate of the Mali conflict when the conflict had or took new dimensions. As I said, that inter-ethnical conflict. So this Malian Commission seeks ways to sensitize and to really reach other populations that don't really have access to the great media, international outlets, be it in national or international media outlets. Many of these people don't have TV, internet, and so on. And that's where the importance of the work we do is actually driven by these audiovisual tools. And we would later talk about these animated videos and how we produce them. So we work to develop tools that can help us sensitize these people and to create additional value through very well-defined topics for public audiences from that Malian Commission for Truth, Justice, and Reconciliation. As an example of this, we've produced 2 videos up until now. We are starting to produce the 3rd video. The last video actually talks about a very common story in our country. This is a story about kidnappings, to be able to heal. This is a video about the consequences in different terrorist fields or areas and how we can cure the wounded in these type of fields. And we have actually translated these videos to different dialects and languages such as Arab, Songhal, Durek, and Tuareg as well as obviously French. So the idea is to use these animations to foster a social dialogue within communities, and those interventions will be moderated by our community associates and my colleagues are also in different activities. We also work together with students. We record those discussions. We validate those videos. We edit them, and we provide certain conclusions to the commission. And our second video was called The Soldier Boy, and it was quite important for our current context. And it was about a boy that, due to different reasons, joins an armed group. And we have also his story of Mustaka, who is also in this context while he's detained. And later we start a conversation about his role and his responsibility as a boy, as a soldier boy. So these are 2 different examples of the videos that we've produced with the commission, the Mali Commission. And another invitation I had mentioned was the invitation to peace. Garango mentioned the importance of having this dedication to peace building within the program from primary school years up until the university level. We must start thinking about responsibility in universities as well regarding this matter, because we have a responsibility role. And therefore, we have also teamed up within different groups. This is a voluntary work, I must highlight. This is community-led work. So it's just students. It's the students themselves whom we meet 3 times per week, and we communicate through Zoom, through WhatsApp, through different ways. And in the year 2020, we had a group with 50 students where we talked about unity together with the students of the Michigan State University. And also, this is a space where we talked about the dedication to peace and the matters about consolidation of peace, and also the role of art and what role can art have in the consolidation of peace through different monuments, installations, and so on. And this is exactly what we've worked on with the students.
I don't know how to say this, like a parallel, like a comparison among different situations in Mali and what's going on in the States. What happened last summer in the States, for example. So this year, very ambitiously, they decided that they wanted to organize a national day dedicated to peace in the University of Bamako. So we are in the organization of this day, and the topic chosen was displacement and the consequences of displacement. Because obviously there are many people that are being displaced in Mali. And as an example, the UN, according to the numbers, to the figures from the UN, there are some technical issues. I'm sorry, the panelist has some technical issues.
Welore, I think you may have to repeat that. The connection is breaking up a little bit. I think we're still losing the voice. Is that right, Sandra? Yeah.
Déplacés internes au Mali.
Welore, can you hear me? I think we lost a little bit of your audio there. I think we lost the connection. Okay. Well, let me restate a couple of the things that Welore was emphasizing as a transition to our third presenters from the Scientific Animation Without Borders, SOBO. As you could hear from Welore's presentation and Boubacar Garango and Moussodjie Dembele, we have a fairly complex team of people working both locally in villages with community organizations and working at the university level to try to connect the information that's coming out through the Commission for Truth, Justice, and Reconciliation to a peace education initiative that will spark dialogue, discussion, and hopefully down the road, some form of reconciliation and reparative justice. This is an ongoing work in progress, and we're eager to have as many participants working on it as possible. The students from Welore's class, and some students, I might add, from my classes at MSU are on this call. So they are here and eager to get your reactions to what they're doing. And so
I'm back.
You are back. Very well. I'm trying to make a bridge between your discussion of the work at the university and the work of your students. I'll just conclude, if it's okay with you, Welore, by
just one, because this is very important, the question of displacement. Just 2 minutes, please.
Go ahead.
If you hear me well. Oui.
Yeah.
Donc, voilà, je voulais juste quand même, parce que ce point intéressant, selon le Bureau de la coordination des affaires humanitaires de l'ONU, en mai 2021, 387 000 personnes déplacées au Mali.
Authority office in Mali. There were thousands of displaced people in Mali, and 55% of them were women. 60% youth or under 18 years of age. So we are interested in mentioning when we talk about the students is that we want them to understand what the consequences, the direct consequences are of displacement, of unschooling of boys and girls. So the young ambassadors of peace in our university in Bamako, they want to have a day to sensibilize people, to raise awareness, to talk about the needs of having this topic of peace through education, through higher education, with the Malian state. And I think I can stop here because I don't have any more time left, but I thank you and I will answer your questions gladly. So thank you so much.
The National Day of Peace Education that our students at the university in Bamako are organizing is around the theme of internally displaced persons, les déplacés. And this, as Welore has described in very clear language, is something that affects all parts of Mali now, and is at the center of the debates over reparative justice and reconciliation. So thank you again, Welore. Thank you, Garango. Thank you, Moussodjie. And now, if I may, let me introduce our last two presenters, who are formerly from Michigan State University, which is where they began working with us, but now are at Purdue University. Professor Julia Bello Bravo is in the Department of Agricultural Sciences, Education and Communication at Purdue, and the co-director of Scientific Animation Without Borders. Professor Barry Pittendry is in the Department of Entomology at Purdue University. They have been instrumental in helping us bring the ideas and the work that's been generated both at the local level and in Malian University to a wider audience. They'll explain how SAWBO, a wonderful acronym, how SAWBO works and where we've been and where we're going. So with that, Barry, I think you're gonna lead off and then hand the baton to Julia.
Great, thank you very much. I first would like to ask the person who's in control of the webinar to allow me to share my screen so I can share our presentation. If possible, I would appreciate it if I could share my screen so I can share the presentation. There we go. Thank you very much. So Dr. Bello Bravo and I will present on Scientific Animation Without Borders today, or SAWBO, and I'll give the first half of the presentation, which will give you a background and broadly what we do, and then Dr. Bello.
Barry, before you go any further, can I just ask you to speak more slowly, because we're translating this into French and into Spanish simultaneously.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
So I'll speak today regarding a program called Scientific Animations Without Borders, or SAWBO. I will give the first half of the talk to give background on the program and broadly what we do. Dr. Bello Bravo will take the second half of the talk to weave it into the context of discussions around peace and reconciliation and the collaborations that we're doing with other speakers on this call, as well as our moderator, Dr. Esquith. Scientific Animations Without Borders, or SAWBO, is a 10-year-old program, well, actually 11-year-old program now, that has been focused on exploring the academic space of both mediums and messages around how can we share knowledge globally with people that speak diverse languages, have diverse literacy levels, and come from very different environments. Classically, it has been an exploration of a space or spaces that have dealt with scientific innovations. However, much of our work has been about how do we begin discussions in communities to transform or have behavioral change in those communities. Thus, it has continued to be an academic exploration of a new area in our collaboration with the team that has joined with us here today to have these discussions. So it's been a very exciting new component of the phase of our ongoing program. To touch on back to Marshall McLuhan's phrase, the medium is the message, we, as I mentioned, explore both the spaces of how do we create messages that allow us to engage with people in discussions towards positive outcomes, and then how do we work with those messages in mediums where we can get that information out to people that oftentimes live in environments that it's difficult for us to get that information to them. So it is exploration of both spaces towards ultimately impact. So as I mentioned before, as Stephen mentioned, this program is currently based at Purdue University. It was started when Dr. Bello Bravo and I were at University of Illinois and continued while we're at Michigan State University. And this is where we began our collaboration with the rest of the team. And we are continuing our collaboration as we have moved to Purdue University. SAWBO was developed for the following reason. How could we take important information and place it into a format that would be understandable by people of diverse literacy levels, of people that spoke many different languages, and then had access or limited access to different types of mechanisms of getting that information. It's also a space where we can learn from what we have done. We can learn from a community of people that we work with in order to move an agenda forward of how we can have positive impacts in communities. The use of animations came about because it was a mechanism by which we could work with groups virtually through the world without the need for travel, which at the time was due to restrictions of resources that we had, but more recently has become more of an imperative because of the COVID-19 crisis. And we use animations because they tend to be useful across numerous cultures. One of the things that we've observed in the early research is you can engage a diverse set of communities with a common set of visuals. And as long as that material is then placed into local languages, you can still use it to engage and actively interact with the community. What this has allowed us to do is work with experts, both globally and locally, to create content, place that content into local languages, work with groups that deploy this information, and then learn from that. So as we learn as a group, then it drives what we do next. So all of what we do is about fundamentally learning in an academic environment towards having impact in a positive way. So think about it as towards research, not for research's sake, but research for impact. We take a systems approach It's a systems approach that drives learning and sharing. Our goal is for optimal sharing and for positive impacts. But we must learn as we go through these steps in order to make sure what is produced at the other end begins discussions that lead us collectively towards paths that have positive outcomes. So classically, what we have done is worked with experts, local, national, international experts, all at the same time in a virtual space. We've taken their collective input in the creation of content, done this in a reiterative manner until we have finalized content that can be shared more broadly. That content can be used for learning. Do people change behavior? Do they enact what happens in these particular animations? What impact does it have them immediately, in the short term or medium term, and in the long term, several years down the road? What does this content mean to them? So we've done both short-term studies, medium-term studies, and long-term studies over multiple years to understand how this information can change the discourse in communities around a particular topic area and change outcomes in those communities. So again, our goal is to learn from information or information deployment in a particular area and how does it engage in a community, then to share with other communities and hopefully share more broadly. So as we think towards the collaboration we have here, yes, the intent is to work in Mali, but our intent is also to learn from the outcomes of this as we move through this project and this program, with a hopeful intent of being able to share insights that may drive this similar type of process elsewhere. So over the past decade, we've worked on numerous different topic areas. We now have over 120 different topic areas, ranging from healthcare to agricultural to post-harvest loss intervention to women's empowerment, a diverse set of topic areas. However, this has been an exciting new area that we begin to work in with the team that's presenting today. We've also been able to take all this content and place it over 250 different languages globally. We don't just focus on the major languages. We sometimes do extensive work with languages that are very rare. We think it is critical to deliver this type of information into communities that may never have heard educational intervention information in their own language. We know that it's profoundly powerful for changing people's behavior. We also, as I mentioned before, not just focus on the message, but we work with understanding optimized mediums and partner groups that can help in the deployment process and help in the development of larger networks for larger sets of discussions in a much more scalable way. We offer apps that allow people to download the materials, take that content out, take it in the community, use it in the local community, and then begin those sets of discussions that need to occur. We offer materials in offline formats. We've worked extensively with USAID, FAO, the World Health Organization, or the World Food Program, in numerous different countries and numerous different environments. Our content has been used on multiple TV stations in West, Eastern, Southern, and Central Africa, as well as in Eurasia. We work with numerous NGOs, ranging from NGOs of 1 to very large non-government organizations. We've worked extensively with youth networks in terms of deployment and learning how they scale and how they engage their community. We've developed strategies of how we can push this out to very large numbers of people in short periods of time through YouTube pushes, with impacting over 1 million people in one topic area in a weekend in Ghana, and then repeating the same effort in Kenya several weeks later. We have also worked extensively, how do you use mediums such as WhatsApp to organize teams and groups of people to get the message out to begin the discussions in communities in an effective way. Content has been used in over 120 different countries globally. We have dozens of partner groups, and we've performed numerous research studies to understand how the content is used, both impact in terms of qualitative impact, What does it mean to people? And what are those qualitative outcomes, but also quantitative outcomes? So we do a considerable amount of machine learning when this content is scaled to understand how we can most effectively impact communities. And for example, we're doing a considerable amount of work of understanding how we can have impact in a positive way in gender balance. So we use both quantitative and qualitative approaches and use the lessons learned in the field to provide critical input for whatever comes next. So if we look at this within the context, to date, we have over 1,500 animations that are freely available. Each topic is available in a range of languages based on needs and who has volunteered to translate that content. We continually add new animations and translations to the library, and all animations are downloadable through the website and the SAWBO Deployer app. So once content is made, it becomes freely available to others who want to use it for educational purposes only. To date, content has touched over 50 million people globally, with content use and known use in over 120 countries. We work with great diversity of partners, and we have been extensively working with grassroots networks over the past year with youth on how can we do reproducible, scalable strategies country after country. So to think towards what we do is not simply about deploying content. It is scaling for research. So as we scale, we learn from those scaling efforts, both in qualitative and quantitative mechanisms, in order to understand how we can optimize the next phase of having positive impact in communities and understanding what works and what doesn't work. So I hope this sets the stage for the next step, which Dr. Bello Bravo will continue with in this discussion. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this presentation. Thank you to the organizer. Thank you to my team. And thank you very for doing the first part of the presentation. So now the question that based on the information that Berry provided, the question that we have is that can this system be used to create materials that can be used in the peace and reconciliation process? So this was a challenge that we have at the beginning. And someone in the chat asked, why scientific, right? So this is not very scientific, the peace and reconciliation process, but it's just a system approach to peace. And this was, like I say, a challenge that we have, and we try to address this challenge working with different groups in Mali, in MSU, and just see what was going to happen, what will be the outcome of this challenge. So next slide, please. Okay. So yes, based on our system approach that Berry explained very well, we were thinking, okay, how we are going to do this peace and reconciliation content. So based on our first component of the framework that we have working with global and local experts, we were thinking, okay, we have to include collaborations with local groups, with grassroots groups, and include their participation to help us to create the content, to contextualize the local content, the reality of what was happening in Mali. So this was the first component. Then the second component will be to create videos and peace. But what were the topics that we wanted to emphasize? What is the recurrent information that happened in violence, right? And this is like a recurrent topics that always happen, like Welore were mentioning the kidnapping. When there is violence, there is kidnapping, there is violence against women, there is child soldiers. There are other topics that we wanted to emphasize, right? Just to start the dialogue. to create the space for people to start understanding what happened in the country. So this is the content that we were working with different groups in Mali and MSU to create these topics. And then, of course, like explained very well the medium and the message. So we wanted to have the opportunity to use the technology based on the penetration of mobile phones in West Africa and worldwide to share these videos, to share this content, to use this content in educational program, to use this content with children in the schools. So we work together like to translate these videos into the local languages so people can have access through mobile phones or any other electronic devices, and then they can benefit the end users. They can be used to start the conversation, to start the dialogue in this space. Next slide, please. So the first video that we started was created collaborative between SWABO and the Residential College in the Arts and Humanities at MSU with Dr. Esquith, and also the local partners in Mali, right, to play International Sports Alliance and the University des Lettres, the Science de Bamako, using a storyboard from Mali to promote peace, justice, and reconciliation. This was based on a multimedia peace education program that was used by teachers and students from Figara School in Kati, Mali, and the Residential College in the Arts and Humanities at Michigan State University. And this happened in 2014. And there is, in the bottom, I just put the link in case that you want to watch this interesting animated book. And yeah, so it's just very cute, very really powerful to share the message, right? About how we negotiate peace, how we using like animals and using like different characters, we can talk about peace and we can find an understanding to peace. So next slide, please. So why we feel very confident about using this approach of animations toward this peace and reconciliation, to create content and peace and reconciliation, because like Betty mentioned, we have like over 10 years of experience creating digital content. We also have experience working in West African countries. And so we understand the culture and we work very well with local groups. And, you know, this is the basic of our program, based working with local groups. We are also think that we are very robust in local languages from West Africa. And I am talking about languages that are, you know, not only if we maybe a number of people speak, not a big number of people speak these languages. So it's a way to capture, right, the language, so the language doesn't go extinct. So I think it's a win-win situation to capture the language, right? And to share this language with many different groups. And also we work with groups that cannot read or write, and maybe they speak other languages, but they don't speak the mainstream language like English and French and Portuguese and Spanish. So it's a way to offer this content in the local language, so it can have like a transformation. It can have like a way to share this information and to watch this knowledge in the local language. Also, we think that music is very important, and especially in Mali, music is really important. So we have also experience of using music from other African countries. We have a music video from Kenya in Swahili, and that was very powerful. So we thought that using music from Mali can be also very powerful to start the conversation and peace. So this is a transforming content that is going through a creative process with a positive outcome. Next slide, please. So our common drive among ourselves and our collaborators is to look at peace through a creative process. This is not just like, okay, I make a video and that's it. No, this is like a back and forth to make the right video that can have a positive income. We think that animation like music can bring people together. And we also think that animations and peace building is a strategic approach that can be used to start a conversation to in a broader context of peace and reconciliation. Next slide, please. So in terms of collaborations, like I mentioned, it is very important for us to work with actors inside and outside partners, means local grassroots groups, NGOs, universities, you know, the Peace and Reconciliation Commission. This group brought the leadership to start the conversation and to create this content, and also the strategies that we think that diverse actors working together toward the same objective is very powerful, and in this case is a way to reach peace, and it can happen. And for the activities to create the content, we use like different strategies like focus group, workshop, trainings, and also we care for the grassroots input that gave us the feedback while we were creating these videos. And I don't know if we have time, but I would like to, if we can like a few minutes to watch this video on kidnapping, so you can have a feel of how this video look.
Do you mind if we run that at the end? Because I don't have a direct link to the video.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, so we will do that. So next slide then. Okay, and like we have done in the past with other videos, there are many opportunities to deploy. It's not only through mobile phones, but we also use like TV station, and this is a picture of a TV station in Nigeria, Arewa 24, that have been broadcasting our videos between different programs. Also, we were part of a tuberculosis prevention. It was like not a movie, but a documentary. And they also explained the video that we have on tuberculosis. I think that was very powerful. Then radio stations, WhatsApp groups, people sharing videos among them, among the networks. So it was really, like I say, there are many ways to deploy these videos. So in terms of the videos and peace, it can be used for educational purpose in the schools to train young people, to train students, to you know, start, like I say, the conversation. Next slide. So yes, I want to conclude that this is just the beginning of this process. We are new creating this type of videos. We are new in this space, but we are learning. And this is a creative approach to peace, where we engage different groups that have like different literacy levels, different languages, cultures, gender, age, all come together to help us. And we use other parameters of the content and in terms of the creation and deployment. So this is a way to build capacity to transform conflict in a process of change and reach the peace that we all want. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julia. I think, Barry, if you stop sharing,
Yep.
we can run maybe the first few minutes of the video.
Do you want to run it from your end, or do you want me to run it from my end?
Why don't you do it?
Okay, just let me bring it up first, and then I'll.
I think it's in the chat. I think Sebe.
Oh, that's
put it in the
fantastic. Much appreciated, Seve. Just one second. Okay, let me share my screen again. And
Great.
Here.
Ce n'est qu'en écoutant le récit de
I
ces
think you may want to fast forward through the text here.
Get it through the, one second.
certes multiséculaires, mais qui,
Here we go.
il faut
And
bien
if you can use the whole screen,
séquence de son enlèvement sur
Let me
scène.
just, so, there we go.
Regardez dehors. Il se passe quelque chose d'anormal. Allons voir ce qui se passe.
Something abnormal is happening. What is happening outside?
Où m'amenez-vous? Je ne veux pas vous suivre.
I don't want to go with you.
On t'a tiré dessus? Recule, recule. Ils vont te faire du
They
mal.
shot you. Go away. I'm sure they will harm you.
Quand tu auras fini avec ces soldats, nous en avons beaucoup d'autres dont tu dois
When you're finished with this soldier, we have a lot of other wounded people so that you can take care of them.
dans ton village.
Mais je dois d'abord m'occuper de ma blessure, monsieur. Elle est très douloureuse.
Go home if you want.
Non, nous n'avons pas de médicaments.
I have a wound myself and it really hurts. I'm sorry, we don't have any medicine for you.
Vous soignerez vous-même.
It's only,
Retournerez à
medicine is only for our soldiers, so you need to heal them first.
Ici, c'est de l'eau. Suivez la route tout droit.
Here's a bit of water. Just follow this road straight until you reach your village.
Can we pause it there, Barry?
Vous avez de la chance, vous savez. Votre bras est resté trop longtemps sans soin. Il est bien infecté, mais heureusement, il n'est pas trop tard.
Your arm is
Je vous remercie pour votre aide.
infected, but fortunately,
On est bien les risques d'une
you're
infection.
okay now. Thank you very much for your help.
Vous allez vous en
I know
sortir.
this infection could have been worse.
Thanks.
Thank you. Everything will be okay.
Je suis sincèrement désolé, mais je ne pourrai pas
Got
vous
lost
reprendre
there.
à votre poste après votre longue absence.
J'ai été kidnappée et blessée. Je n'ai pas manqué un seul jour de travail pendant toutes ces années.
I was kidnapped and wounded.
Thanks so much.
Mm.
That was great and a good idea, Julia. We have 10 minutes and I want to thank our SAWBO co-directors, Barry Pittendry and Julia Bella Bravo, for a really carefully designed and well thought out presentation that shows how, in fact, we can put this kind of technology to creative and peace building use. Thank you so much. And there was a question in the chat that Julia alluded to from Isaac Minde in Tanzania, asking in what sense is science playing a role? And I think we've seen in Barry's presentation, the goals in terms of research and the tools in terms of technology that show there is a really important need for this kind of collaborative work. And the collaboration has been intense between our SAWBO partners, our local partners, our university partners, and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, though I don't know that they understood exactly what they were getting into 3 years ago when they invited us to create the first video animation. We sometimes have to explain it a little bit more to them than we do to the other viewers. There was another question in the chat from David Crocker. Let me go through some of these questions. We have only about 10 minutes. One is not a question. One is from Marcy Hessling O'Neill from MSU. who writes, I used this animation in my undergraduate class earlier this semester. It was well received by students and they continued talking about it for several weeks. Well, there's a data point for you, Julia, if you're keeping track. David Crocker, who asked an earlier question, this is probably directed to Welore and Moussodjie and Garango, have the schools that we've worked with in communities been the objects of armed violence in Mali, and how are schools in Mali holding up underneath the violent attacks that have been so well documented? Moussodjie and or Garango or Welore, would you like to respond to that question?
Sure, if my connection work well, and also Moussodjie and Garango may want to continue. I will say in French. That's fine? Do you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You can speak in French. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Donc, par exemple, les écoles communautaires dont Moussodjie et Garango ont parlé, à l'école communautaire, par exemple, de Kati, n'est pas victime directe d'attaques terroristes, parce qu'on va dire qu'en termes d'attaques directes, Kati, cette zone-là est épargnée. Oui et non, parce que Kati, c'est une zone militaire où vivent à la fois les familles de militaires et les militaires eux-mêmes. Donc, ce sont des écoles qui subissent les conséquences, des enfants qui subissent, par exemple, des morts de parents au front, au nord, au centre, ailleurs. Mais dans beaucoup d'autres endroits du Mali, il y a des violences directes contre les écoles. Et ce n'est pas forcément des massacres, si je peux le dire, mais ce n'est pas moins grave, parce que ce sont des fermetures d'écoles. Des centaines et des centaines d'écoles sur le territoire malien sont fermées. Les gens ont peur, n'ont pas le droit d'aller à l'école. En tout cas, à l'école française, on va dire. D'accord? Parce qu'il y a des groupes djihadistes qui leur interdisent d'aller à l'école. On interdit aux enfants d'aller à l'école. On interdit aux femmes de s'instruire. Donc, voilà. Donc, on vit dans cette situation, et pas qu'au nord et au centre, mais vraiment plus au sud du pays, et pas loin de Bamako. On va dire à 50-60 km de Bamako, il y a des écoles qui sont fermées. Je vais laisser Garango et Moussodjie continuer sur ce plat parce qu'on est très bien en cette question, il le vit aujourd'hui.
Thank you. Welore, Garango or Moussodjie, would you like to add anything?
OK. Oui. Donc, à la suite de Welore, je vais juste dire que, en ce qui concerne, elle a déjà parlé du cas de Kati, qui n'est vraiment pas une préoccupation majeure par rapport à cette question de violence sur les élèves. Mais par exemple, quand on prend la région de Mopti, le centre du pays, on enregistre des centaines d'écoles fermées aujourd'hui. Des centaines d'écoles sont fermées parce que les zones sont carrément contrôlées par les forces djihadistes et qui n'acceptent pas l'enseignement occidental. Et la résilience des parents et des communautés par rapport à cela, d'abord les communautés, les autorités éducatives à travers les services du ministère de l'Éducation, ils avaient déjà instauré, parce qu'il y avait aussi des attaques sur les enseignants. Il y a des enseignants qui ont été violentés, d'autres enseignants qui ont été tués, des enseignants qui ont été kidnappés. Donc,
teachers of various schools, teachers that were mistreated, kidnapped, and to respond to that necessity of boys and girls, there was a volunteer program locally to not have to close the schools, definitely, because the teachers that were part of the school were scared to go. So we reached out to the communities to see who could give some classes and volunteer. But the situation is very complicated now, and the groups have even torched schools and torched educational material, and teachers that were volunteers or part of the school can't go to schools anymore. And another thing is that education, the education that they offer, well, we accept that the school becomes an Arabic school or there is no school. So that's the answer locally and nationally in terms of this situation and in terms of schools. So as we said before, there are thousands of schools closed.
Juste pour ajouter, je sais qu'on n'a pas beaucoup de temps. Notre troisième animation vidéo, collaboration, porte sur ce sujet de fermeture d'école. L'histoire que nous racontons dans cette vidéo, dans cette animation, porte sur les conséquences de la fermeture d'une école de village. Et on suit ensuite deux protagonistes qui racontent et une prise de conscience et qui est victime, qui est bourreau. Et est-ce que c'est si simple, le rôle de bourreau, le rôle de victime, en tout cas, voilà. Donc, cette question est très importante pour nous.
To animate the dialogue
thank you
about
both.
this because this is
And
important to us.
Welore is quite right that one of the videos in the pipeline deals with the problem of collaboration when schools are closed in villages and some of the adults sort of choose to support the closing of the school rather than resist it. So we're quite mindful of this challenge. Thank you, David, for raising the question. Your other question in the chat, as we approach the end of our session, your other question in the chat is a very complicated one. Does this approach that we have, the kind of hybrid peace building using video animation as one tool, does it work well in situations where the conflict is more sort of pervasive and violent? You use the example of Ethiopia. That's a question for a whole other session, I'm afraid, and it requires we describe what the conflicts and the violence is in Mali, which some people would say is pervasive, even though it's not ubiquitous. I think that we're, Sandra, correct me if I'm wrong, we're at the 11:55 mark, and that is time to thank everyone one last time. Translators, you were awesome. Technicians, thank you. David, thank you, Sandra, for supervising the whole team. Thank you, Eric Palmer, who had to step out. And most of all, thank you, panelists and participants. It was a team effort, and we managed through it. Don't ever say that we can't handle technical difficulties. We did it well. Thank you all. Mon plaisir, Iniche, and have a good day. Cambe. Okay.
Gracias. Gracias.
Gracias.
It was a pleasure. Merci à tous.
Okay, so I think we're 11:55. Sandra, that's your cue.
Yeah.
Okay. To close.
Yo tengo que despedir el evento.
Yeah.
Do I have to close
Bueno,
the
nada,
event?
pues
Well,
les agradezco
then,
mucho por darnos
thank
la
you so much
oportunidad
for
de
giving us the
participar
opportunity of
en su evento
participating
como
in
intérpretes.
your events as
Yo les
interpreters.
agradezco
I
a las
really
4
thank
intérpretes que
the 4
trabajaron y pues
interpreters that worked with
encantada de
us,
conocer a
and I
Welore,
am
a
very glad
Garango,
to
a
meet you,
Moussodjie,
Welore and
a
Garango and
Julia, a
Moussodjie,
Barry, bueno, y
Julia,
a ti, Steven.
Barry,
Genial
you,
poder trabajar con
Stephen.
ustedes y
It is
esperamos
great to
que
have worked with
no
you,
sea la
and we
última,
hope
sino
that
que
this is
sigamos
not the
trabajando
last
en
time,
el
but that
futuro.
we continue to work
Thank you,
together in
Sandra.
the
This
future.
was the 5th of 5. We did it. And it will be recorded. Don't delete those recordings. Don't delete those recordings. Save them. Okay. Have a good day. Au revoir.
Bye-bye.
Bueno,
Bye.
chao a todos, que estén bien.
Bye.
Bye.